Let's talk about grocery shopping today. Before I came to Canada, I was really wondering how expensive are groceries here actually. Is everything actually that expensive, and will I have to eat only rice, potatoes, and eggs every day or not? After living in Toronto, Canada for over 2 years now, I think that I have a pretty good idea of where it's a good idea to shop, for what kind of items and how much things cost and so on. And I thought that it might be useful to you guys who are planning to come to Canada soon or have just arrived here to hear my thoughts on what I think about grocery shopping. Before I continue, I want to let you guys know that in this video, I'll be talking about grocery shopping with a medium budget. And let me first tell you what I mean by medium budget, because of course it is very relative and subjective. To give you more perspective, I would say that a really low budget for 2 people would be between $300 and $400 per month for grocery shopping, for shopping food. And is it possible or not to survive on $300 to $400 per month? I think that it totally is. It is totally possible to stick to certain recipes, to a certain menu where you get enough nutrition, enough balance in your diet, but only spend $300 to $400 per month. But there is a difficulty with that, of course. You are restricted to shopping to certain places only, and you might get bored after a while eating the same things day in and day out. And yeah, once in a while there are things that you just really want to eat, like some snacks or a certain kind of cheese or whatever. And I think that at $400 a month for 2 people, you'll be very, very limited. By the way, if you found value in this video so far and you found it interesting, then please do let me know by hitting the like button. On the other hand, a high budget for groceries, I would say, is anything above $800, $800, $1,200 for 2 people. It's not a luxurious budget still, because there is really no end to how much you can spend on groceries. But with $800 to $1,200, you can really get the best of the best groceries. You can get all your veggies organic. You can get all your meat, if you eat meat, organic, free of hormones, antibiotics, etc., and free-run eggs and everything. But in this video, I want to talk about a medium range budget, which is $500 to $800 per month for 2 people, because I think that that is a very reasonable amount to spend on groceries, and within that budget range, you are able to get very, very good quality items. By the way, in case you're new to this channel and you're not subscribed yet, you might want to consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my other videos on living in Canada. And if you do, also don't forget to hit the notification bell, because only if you do will YouTube notify you once I upload a new video. So the way that I manage my grocery budget here in Toronto, Canada, is that I buy different kinds of foods at different places, at different grocery shops. I don't just go to the one single grocery shop every single week and buy all my stuff there, because I just think that wouldn't be optimal. Sometimes the price is just not right. Sometimes the quality is just not there. So today I want to share with you 7 places where I buy my groceries here in Toronto, Canada, so I get the right mix between quality, variety, and also price. Here's a question for you. Do you have any questions about shopping for groceries here in Canada, or especially in Toronto? If you do, then please let me know in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer them. The first place where I regularly shop for groceries are discounters, and I'm sure that you are familiar with these discounters, and they surely exist in your country too, wherever you are. Discounters are stores like Walmart who are focused on offering the lowest price possible. And in Canada, Toronto, the discounters where I shop at most frequently are Walmart and also No Frills. I would also add to that another supermarket called Nations, where they sell food items from all sorts of countries, but I'll get to that a bit later. So the kind of items that I tend to buy at Walmart and No Frills are staple items. Staple items meaning those kind of grocery items where it really doesn't care where you buy them, because they are standard. For example, Kellogg's Corn Flakes, or a brand of rice, or potatoes, or cookies, or your favorite snacks, or a certain brand of ice cream. It really doesn't matter which supermarket you buy them at, because the most important thing is that you just want to get them at the cheapest price possible. So I really make it a point that latest every 2 weeks I go to one of these discounters and buy all of my staples there. The type of staples, for example, that I buy most frequently is pasta. The same brand of pasta in Walmart, for example, or at No Frills could cost $1.50, whereas at another regular supermarket that same brand could cost $2.20. And if you buy a huge quantity of these things, then after a while it really adds up. But I personally would be really bored out of my mind if I could only shop at Walmart, because the thing is that there are some products that are good at Walmart, even the fresh things, but there are things that are really of low quality and I wouldn't want to buy there. And that is why I also shop at places which I call premium supermarkets. Premium supermarkets is what I would call places like Whole Foods. You might have heard of that. And here in Canada, in Toronto, there's Sobeys, which is very popular, and also Metro and Longos. And the average price of grocery items there are indeed more expensive than in Walmart. And that is why, for example, I would try not to buy my staples at Sobeys, but I buy my staples at Walmart. But there are certain things like certain brands of coffees or teas or maybe cheeses or seafood and so, where I find that the quality at Sobeys is much better than at Walmart. And of course I pay a premium for that. There is no way around it. If you want something of higher quality, usually it will be more expensive. But the point is that I am very selective about what I buy at Sobeys. So let's say that I spend about $120 every 2 weeks buying my staples at Walmart. But then I go to Sobeys every 10 days or every 2 weeks and I spend $100 there, but I really only buy the things like the special kind of foods or gourmet foods that I can't get at Walmart. I also rarely buy food at these premium supermarkets because I think that they are overpriced there and the quality is not always that good either. And that brings me to the third place that I want to talk about, which is fruit and vegetable stores. Here in Toronto, there are tons of fruit and vegetable stores everywhere around each corner. And usually the quality is very good and fresh. After you've been here for a while, then you will have your own favorite fruit and vegetable store where you think you get the freshest items. But anyways, I almost go to a fruit and vegetable store every single week. And the reason is that not only is the price competitive and the quality of the produce is also very high, but the most important thing is the turnover, because these small stores really focus only on fruit and vegetables. They really have a quick turnover, and it means that on a daily basis they get fresh items, and that is not always the case in larger stores such as Walmart or Sobeys. Sometimes I go to Sobeys and I find that the fruit that I buy there is not as fresh because perhaps it has been sitting there just one day too long, whereas in those fruit stores they get shipments on a regular basis and they don't have that large of a quantity of items. And going back to price, I also realized that in these fruit and vegetable stores, the price is slightly lower than what I would pay at Sobeys. I think maybe around 20% cheaper or so. For example, I would be able to get strawberries for $4.99 at a fruit store, whereas at Sobeys perhaps I would pay $5.99. Now let's move on to specialty stores. By specialty stores, I mean those kind of stores that have a very specific kind of product range. For example, Asian groceries. And here I need to mention the supermarket Nations. Nations is a very large supermarket here in Toronto. I'm not sure if there is a Nations outside of Toronto. And there you can find not only Asian food, but you can find foods from almost all around the world, I would say. So mostly I would say that Nations specializes on foods that are either Asian, European, and Eastern European. And because I am Asian, I am particularly interested in Asian food, and there you can really find a large variety of things that don't exist in other stores. So if you go to a regular store like Walmart or No Frills, maybe you would find like 1 or 2 brands of tofu at the most. But if you go to the store Nations, then I think you can find like 5 brands or more and all types of tofu, and you can even find kimchi, you can find all sorts of ramen, but there are also tons of Indian grocery items, Middle Eastern, and also Southeast Asian. And I noticed that in other supermarkets there are not as many items that come from Southeast Asia, and here you can find, I would say, almost anything. Price wise, I would say that Nations is not that cheap, although when you walk into the store you get the impression that everything is very cheap just because the supermarket is really huge, but the decoration, the interior is really standard, so you would think that okay, here I can get cheap food items, but that is not always the case. So really make sure that you double check the price and see if you're really getting a deal here or not. But the thing is, of course, they have a kind of monopoly position for certain kind of foods because you just can't find them anywhere else. Of course, other places where you can find these specific kind of grocery items is in small stores that are owned by Chinese, by Korean, by Indians, and so on. But the thing is that you would only get items from one country in that store, whereas if you go to Nations, then you get everything at once. And this is not a Nations advertisement, by the way, because I'm not sponsored by them at all. I just want to share my experience with you. Okay, let's move on to the other types of specialty stores that I go to. I really love cheese because I lived in Germany for about half of my life, and I ate cheese on a daily basis, and I also have a very high standard when it comes to cheese. So I really love to go to this one little specialty cheese store called the Cheese Boutique. And there you can find not only cheese, but you can also find specialty items like sauerkraut, if you are familiar with that, and all kinds of breads and small pastries and so. And yes, it is much more expensive there. And again, that is the reason why I would never buy my staples there. But you always have to pay attention to particular items because sometimes you get a deal there. For example, at this cheese boutique place, although everything on average was much more expensive, like an apple would cost much more than at a No Frills, for example. But then there are things like canned tomatoes, which is a staple that I always buy, and a large can of canned tomatoes would cost like $2 plus, which is really cheap. So again, if I go to a store like the Cheese Boutique, I would not spend like $150 shopping there. I would not buy any flour or rice there, but I would buy things like cheese or ham or pastry. And maybe I would spend like $30 to $50 there once in a while. I don't go there every week. I go there every couple of weeks to get like those items that I really crave for. The next kind of store is meat and seafood store. So I would really advise you in that case to buy these items at these small stores that are dedicated to just selling meat and seafood, because the quality that you get there is much better and the price is actually not much more expensive. Of course, there are always those kind of store that are maybe a bit more fancy and they sell their items at a higher price, but in general I wouldn't say that meat and seafood at these kind of stores are more expensive than at a regular store. And I just think that even if it's more expensive for items like meat and seafood, which are very sensitive products, it's really worth it to pay a premium. I personally don't mind to spend like 20 or even 30% more on meat so I can make sure that the quality is good, meaning that it is fresh and that no hormones are used to raise the animal and that there are no antibiotics, or at least a smaller amount of antibiotics used. That is something that I find very important for my personal health, and that is why I'm also willing to pay a premium for that. But apart from the price, the taste is also different. Once you've bought meat or seafood at a specialty store, then you'll realize that it's really not the same. Sometimes when I buy minced beef meat at one of these discounter stores, I always smell like this kind of smell of chemicals that really turns me off and that I really hate, and that makes me feel that something is wrong with it, and you really need to add tons of spices and salt to cover up the smell. But when I buy minced beef at a really good butcher and when I fry the meat, it really smells so good. And I would say that the difference in price is about $1 to $2 per pound or per kilo. But I am always in favor of eating less meat with better quality than more meat with lesser quality. Let's move on to one of my favorite stores, which is called Shoppers Drug Mart. And don't let the name of the shop confuse you, because there is the word drug mart in it. So Shoppers Drug Mart is a chain of stores here that has a pharmacy within the store, but apart from that, it also sells a ton of hygiene products, toiletries, but also food items. So there you can find items like coffee and tea, ice cream, frozen pizza, and sometimes they have really good deals. I would say that every 2 weeks or so they apply discounts on some of their staple items, and when I see that, I always rush in and I buy like a stack of frozen pizzas. Like there is one pizza brand that I really loved. It's a German brand called Dr. Oetker. So usually this brand of pizza could cost like $5 to $6, but when it's on sale at Shoppers Drug Mart, then sometimes it's $3 for $10, and whenever that happens, I rush in and I buy a stack of those. Another store I really loved is called Winners, but unfortunately now at the moment they're closed, so I can't wait for the day that they open again. Winners is a store that sells quality items at a cheaper or discounted price. So they sell branded items, non-branded items, but in general they have a very good quality. They sell clothing, they sell dry food and snack items, they sell toiletries like soap, shampoo, lotions, and so on. So it's really fun to go there because oftentimes they have products that are not available at other stores. So for example, you would be able to get like a pound of coffee that usually costs like $20 or so at only half the price at $10. I think it's a really great idea to go to all these different places so that you can balance your budget, but you can get quality items and you can also get the variety, because come on, you don't want to be eating the same items, the same kind of foods day in and day out, right? So now I think you've got a pretty good idea about all the different places that you can shop for groceries in Canada, Toronto. But if you're still wondering how much the living costs overall per month are here in Canada, in Toronto specifically, then you might want to check out this other video, which I link up here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.